our audience has such a strong bond with our musicians. Everybody knows our musicians by name. They are integral members of our community, and there is such a strong connection that was longed during the pandemic. And we had our patrons tuning in from the comfort of their living room, tuning in into our concerts, and they care because it was our orchestra performing. It was their own Quad Cities Symphony performing. That is so powerful, and it's a true testament of the relationship we have with the community.
Where do you find a family of communities connected by the storied Mississippi River, where young explorers and dreamers, investors and entrepreneurs thrive? Where can you connect with real people living and creating in a place that's as genuine as it is quirky? QC, that's where.
Welcome to QC That's Where. I'm Katrina, your host, and today I'm here with Brian Baxter, the Executive Director of the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra, and Ernesto Estigarribia, the Associate Conductor and Youth Ensembles Music Director of the orchestra. Hello, Brian and Ernesto. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So excited to talk to you guys. You are part of an organization that is one of the Quad Cities' longest standing amenities, really. Established back in 1915. It's, let's see, among the nation's 20 longest established orchestral associations. That is nothing to shake a finger at. What does it mean to you guys to be part of something that's been so historically long-lasting?
Well, I'll kick us off, and I'll just say I think it's really powerful to have been in business continuously that entire time. I mean, we've been through at least two pandemics. If we count the 1918 flu pandemic, and then of course the recent one we went through, and all manner of other crazy things, World War II, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, we've been through a lot. And to me, it's a real testament of how important what we do is to our community and to, the fabric of the community, the cultural vibrancy of this community. Many larger cities than us, larger metropolises, have orchestras that are not as long established as ours and continuously operating. So that's a real testament to the values here. And yeah, it's amazing to kind of see that sort of trend. And like when we go back and look through our history and we look at like different programs, like what did they perform in 1916 and how did that look compared to 1950 and 1980 and now 2023? It's fascinating that we've had such longevity, and it's we're really proud of it.
I think one of the things that makes me really excited is that through all the crises that Brian mentioned, this organization throughout history re-emerge even stronger than they were before each crisis. And I think we are right at the moment of experiencing that, like we are now way stronger than we were, say, in 2019, 2020. And that is, of course, that takes leadership and that takes, brilliant management, but it also tells you all you need to know about the culture and the appreciation that the community has for its symphony orchestra.
Yeah, I think you guys both touched on something really important, that the orchestra has stood the test of time and it's just proved its worth to this community. We were talking a few moments ago before we started recording about, the pandemic, the most recent pandemic for COVID, and you guys still had a season. What was that like?
Well, I mean, the pandemic was an experience for all of us, wasn't it? For the orchestra, we were steadfastly committed to having programming in whatever fashion we were able to do it and safely able to do it. So we still had concerts. We didn't have the same amount of concerts or the same scale of concerts, but we would have concerts with smaller orchestras. Sometimes they would be digital only. Sometimes we would be able to have a smaller audience. And we used that playbook to kind of build programs and help us to adapt very quickly as things progressed during the pandemic. If we all remember that time, it was sort of like, we don't know what's happening next, but we have to keep doing the next thing in the best way that we know how, and through the network we built, you know, within the community, both through our board, but through our, you know, like the health departments and all that expertise as well. And so, yeah, we had a full Masterworks concert season. We, you know, we shifted the way we do our huge Quad City Bank and Trust Riverfront Pops concert with these spaced plots, which have carried on to today in a different form now. And so there were some different things that came out of it that we're still using today that have been really beneficial. So yeah, it was all about adapting and communicating and that sort of esprit de corps that you need to try to keep everyone moving in the same direction during a time that was frankly extremely challenging for us on staff and for everyone in the community. I mean, because you remember that time, it wasn't the most fun time period.
I have two things to say about this. One is the delivery of our concerts was predominantly, I mean, we did have some live concerts towards the end of that 2020-2021 season, but the bulk of our delivery was online. It was virtual. And you might wonder, well, with so many orchestras doing that, and, you know, so, you know, the Berlin Philharmonic and the Chicago Symphony all having recordings, you know, on YouTube, why are we doing this? And I think to answer that, I have to say that our audience has such a strong bond with our musicians. Everybody knows our musicians by name. They are integral members of our community. And there is such a strong connection that was longed during the pandemic. And we had our patrons tuning in from the comfort of their living room, tuning into our concerts, and they care because it was our orchestra performing. It was their own Quad Cities Symphony performing. That is so powerful, and it's a true testament of the relationship we have with the community. The other thing I have to say is in the youth orchestra realm, you know, our youth orchestra is so large that we could not all rehearse at the same time. So I had to split each of my orchestras into multiple cohorts and rehearse them separately. And basically, when the time for the concert, and I'm doing quotation marks here with my fingers, when the concert came, we basically recorded and we put everybody in something in a building that looks like a warehouse where we can, almost 100 people can be spread 6 feet apart. And we will play the symphony, but that was the first time that we'll all be under the same roof, because I rehearsed them all separately. So it was, it was like solving a really complex puzzle. In a way, it was fun and exciting and thrilling, but it also taught us many things. It taught us the value of how important it is to play music at the same time, under the same roof, and having those interpersonal connections. So I think that is the most powerful thing.
Yeah, well, we will never.
Oh yeah, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, we'll never again take for granted the opportunity to see a concert live with our peers, with our community, any kind. I mean, that's for us, that's any other type of concert too, or performing arts event. I mean, that much is true. And then for our students, for many of them, this was the only ensemble experience they had for a year or more. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, obviously, like, your musicians, when they get together, they feed off of each other's energy and, can adapt with each other to complete the pieces and what have you. What is it like for an orchestra to not have, or to have to use that audience? Do you guys, do they feed off of the audience as well, or is it kind of a take it or leave it?
I mean, that is pretty weird, because we will finish, we will play a rousing finale, and then like we will be clapping for each other, because like there's no usually the logical following happening to a symphony, a rousing finale, is the audience is, they stand up and give us a standing ovation. We had none of that. So
yeah,
but it also, we were such a close knit, because like we were all like supporting each other and clapping for one another. I mean, it was a weird thing, but we made the best we could out of it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're moved beyond that, and thank you guys for kind of reliving those those memories that, you know, some we want to forget, and others, like you said, there's good things that we took along with us to today. So
Sure.
speaking of today, I want to talk about the current excitement going on in the Youth Symphony Tour. Can you please, Ernesto, kind of fill us in on what's happening with that?
Sure. So the youth orchestra, so our youth orchestra system has 4 different levels. The flagship ensemble, which we call Youth Symphony Orchestra, will be touring Europe this summer. We're gonna be playing in Berlin, in Potsdam, in Leipzig, and we will finish the tour in the Czech Republic, precisely in the city of Prague. And we are so excited to take a group of, you know, high school age musicians from the Quad Cities, representing, you know, Iowa, Illinois, the Quad Cities region, and frankly, the United States. You know, we are gonna be a cultural ambassador, so to speak, in Europe, and we're so incredibly excited. We just finished a successful season here in the Quad Cities, and now we are, you know, fine-tuning details for this trip. And this is the first trip in, you know, 40+ years of the youth orchestra. And as I was telling the students last night, because we had a rehearsal last night, is that not only we get to do, you know, touristy things like as you know, groups of students do when they travel abroad, we also get to perform, and we're gonna perform, you know, a mix of European music, a mix of American music, a mix of, you know, living composers. So it's a whole experience that I think is going to be unforgettable for all of our students. I mean, being, you know, 16, 17, 18, and leaving, you know, the country for the first time, getting on an airplane for the first time, seeing Europe, seeing Berlin, the Berlin Wall. I mean, those are such mind-blowing opportunities, and I'm so glad we're doing it.
Would you go through your day-to-day in the orchestra?
Sure. You mean for the tour or in general? Or like
Just in general, you know, since you've been working with the orchestra, what has been your kind of like, you know, bread and butter tasks, if you will? What are you been up to day by day?
Well,
Every day is different, right?
every day is
it?
different for sure. Which is actually the most exciting part, because, you know, no week looks the same as any other week in a period of 10 or 15 years. I'd say Brian and I have different roles, but in my role, you know, I spend most of the time here in this room, which is a room in my house, and I, you know, try to learn my music, try to learn the score, try to strategize about how to rehearse a piece of music. This particular week, I'm preparing for our upcoming concerts of Beauty and the Beast, which is a live-to-film concert where we're gonna perform the live soundtrack to the film being projected above us. So, you know, I've been living in that Disney fantastical world. After that's done, I'll be doing something else, and that's the way it goes for me. But I know, you know, in the office, they have a plethora of things that they do in order to have operations and all the things. And Brian can talk more about that.
Yeah, Brian, same question.
Yeah, you know, like Ernesto, every day is different. You know, it runs the gamut of all the things that we need to make, you know, the magic happen on the stage, and the rehearsals happen for both the professionals and the youth. I mean, in any given day, I'm out meeting potential donors, or working with board members and various committees that we have, and, you know, thinking about the different strategic objectives we have, and working with our staff. And, you know, so these things we're sort of all over the map. Like we can be talking about marketing and how we're selling tickets to concerts. We'll be talking about fundraising, of course, is a major component of what we do, because we have kind of these diverse revenue streams, and we have to raise a lot of money to make all of this stuff happen. And then, you know, working with programming. So spend a lot of time with Ernesto here, and with our music director, Mark Russell Smith. You know, we often joke that we don't know what year it is today, because we're executing the current year. We've approved the upcoming year. and so we're working on getting artists booked and different details that need to come into place for that. And then we're also planning the year after that. So you're sort of living on multiple planes of existence at any given time. So yeah, there's never a dull moment. People always, this is an old thing, not necessarily exclusive to the Quad Cities, but for pretty much any arts job I've held, occasionally people think, oh, do you take the summer off? And I always laugh at them. I'm like, no, this is very full-time work. But we don't show up at the first concert in the the start of the season and everything is just there. There's a lot of preparation and hard work at every level, from our part-time staff to our artistic staff to the stage hands on the stage, all facets of it, and the musicians on stage, of course. So yeah, it's very engaging, very fun, and a lot of various pieces all moving at once.
And something peculiar in our field is that the rehearsal and the concert are the last two stages of the entire process. And actually the quickest and the ephemeral parts of the process, I mean, they take place 2 days leading to the concert. So for instance, for this week, we have a concert on Saturday night. So we will meet on Friday for the first and only time. And because of the highly professional level that our musicians have, our artistic team and everybody, like everybody comes prepared to just put the parts together. However, that doesn't mean that's the first time they see the music. I mean, they get delivered the music months in advance so they can prepare and do their due diligence and listen to the pieces in preparation. But we basically put it together in rehearsal, in 1 or 2 rehearsals for a concert. And that is something that I would say is peculiar to our field. No other field is like that,
That surprises me. I didn't expect that.
And that's a unique difference with our professional musicians, which is what Ernesto's talking about. Whereas our youth ensembles do get that weekly rehearsal.
Right, we have weekly rehearsals, yeah.
So as part of the, directing the youth ensemble is probably a core element of teaching them how to prepare eventually on their own when they, are part of an orchestra as a professional. You're getting together weekly to kind of help demonstrate and coach, but this is like something they take over once they kind of enter into the real world, I take it. Right.
So, I mean, that is essentially where our value proposition is, which is offer them a professional-like experience. I mean, we do the same, we utilize the same processes that we will utilize with our professional orchestra, but just because of the nature of where they are in their musical journey, it takes longer. So it will take them 10 weeks to prepare a program versus a professional orchestra takes them, 4 days. But essentially we do the same thing. We deliver music to them far in advance. We expect the same level of preparation, that they will do their homework, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that is essentially what we do. That is perhaps a little bit different from what they get at school. At school they meet every day, they have attendance, they have playing tests, and they have all sorts of things and homework, and we don't do any of that. We expect that they come prepared to the best of their abilities, and we put things together in rehearsal, and they learn a ton as a result.
So coming up with the 109th season, it's courage and beauty. That is the theme. Can you guys speak to kind of how the events tie into that, and where that idea came from when you created the lineup of this season?
Yeah, maybe I'll kick it off here. Every year we come up with sort of an overarching theme. This current year is the triumphant spirit, which is really a nod to overcoming what we've overcome through the pandemic, and using music as a representation of that. Courage and beauty is more about like this idea of, we have an enormously diverse array of music that we're presenting across the whole season. And so we're trying to do our best to represent a lot of different voices, both famous works from long since passed away composers, as well as composers working hard today in America and elsewhere around the world. And maybe I'll just take our opening masterworks as kind of a really good example of this theme. That masterworks is called From Conflict to Courage. So we're featuring Dmitri Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, which is arguably, I would say, his most famous work, period. If you know any of his music, you probably know that symphony. And hugely popular. He was, of course, dealing with repression in the Soviet state and all of that. And so there's a lot of those sorts of themes. And that more historical work is tying into a brand new work by Jessie Montgomery, who is a living composer, American composer today. And she wrote this piece that's really about today, the divisions that we see in America today in particular, and seeking ways to use music to sort of tell people or bring the notion that in reality, there's a lot more that we have in common than we either think or we acknowledge, and how can we sort of bridge the gaps that are there right now. So there you can kind of see the courage to beauty type theme. And you see that coming across in different ways throughout the whole season. The thing I'm most excited for, I don't know if you were going to ask this later, but
that was what I was going to ask next. Yes, please.
The concert I'm most excited for next season, every 2-3 years or so, we have what we call a gala concert, where we bring a pretty big name artist and we sort of cap off the whole season with a large scale event. So when we had our 100th anniversary, we had Yo-Yo Ma with our orchestra, which was a huge deal. And this year, this will be 2024, in April, we're bringing Emmanuel Axe, who's arguably one of the best concert pianists in the world, one of the most famous in the world. He's a frequent collaborator of Yo-Yo Ma, who I just mentioned. And he's going to be playing with our orchestra in a gala kind of season capstone event, April 27th to 2024. So we're thrilled about that. And this is actually the second time he's played with us. He played with us in, I think it was 1981, like right at the beginning of his career. So it's really exciting to be able to bring him back this coming season. So that would be the event I'm most excited about.
And this will be kind of special for him too, circling back to where, one of his kickoff moments of his career was.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a guy who's played with, correct me if I'm wrong, Ernesto, but pretty much every and any orchestra in the world. I mean, he plays with the New York Philharmonic probably every season, with Chicago Symphony, with, insert any various European orchestras. I mean, he's been all over, and he's incredible artist, but very down-to-earth human. I mean, he was born in the Ukraine to Polish Jewish parents and immigrated to, I think, Canada first, and then to the United States. So he's also an immigrant story, a great example. Just like my friend here, Ernesto, immigrant story, which I think is also a pretty pertinent topic these days as well. So it's going to be a pretty exciting season.
Ernesto, before you answer what you're most excited about this season, I would love to hear your story.
My story. Well, I was born and raised in Paraguay, South America. I grew up playing the viola, I grew up playing the piano, and then soon I found out that piano is a lonely activity, so I wanted to be part of an orchestra, so I had to pick an orchestral instrument. So the viola was handed to me, mainly because I have long arms and I was like tall and lanky. So I guess that makes you fit to play the viola. And I always was interested in conducting. I came to the United States a few years ago, actually several years ago, lived all of my adult life here, and went to school in Kansas, Minnesota, and now I live in the Quad Cities. This is my home, and I love this community. I love conducting because it involves my two passions, which are music and people, and bringing people together to make music is a wonderful thing, and that's essentially what conducting is. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Thank you. Okay. Now, what are you most looking forward to this season?
Well, I mean, this upcoming season has a stellar masterworks, but I am partial to the pops offerings that we have. Of course, we're going to kick off with our traditional Riverfront Pops, the Quad City Bank and Trust Riverfront Pops, which is the unofficial party of the year, party of the summer, where thousands. It is official, yeah. So you know, we're thousands. I think we got up to 8,000, audience members coming to that at one point. So I think it's an amazing thing. We have the music of Journey, you know, the iconic band, and we're gonna play an outdoor concert, and that's a very exciting way to kick off the season. And we have additionally two live to film presentations, 2 movie concerts, our traditional annual Harry Potter. Next year we have the Half-Blood Prince. I can't believe we're already in our 6th episode of Harry Potter. We've done one each year. And we also have Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, and this is gonna be around Halloween. So we are super excited about that because is a really cool way to celebrate, the spooky season of Halloween. And so we're incredibly excited about all these offerings. And the beauty of our organization is that we have something for everybody. We serve the entire Quad City areas. In fact, people come from all over the region. They make it a destination to come see the symphony, which is an amazing thing. And if Beethoven is not your thing, it's okay. You can come see Harry Potter. You can come see Journey. We have something for you, and that is an immense. It creates an immense sense of pride for me that we are able to target pretty much everybody from, as I like to say, from kids from 5 to 90 years old.
What is in your years being part of the orchestra, what is your highlight moment, or what is something that stands out to you that you could, share with us?
That's a tough one. We've been through so many great concerts. Every moment was uniquely special. But I gotta say that the most special project for me personally was belonging to the community-wide partnership that pretty much started with the symphony, and that partnership was called Out of Darkness: Lessons from the Holocaust for Today. So basically, we decided to produce an opera titled To Remain Out of Darkness. All of that is the title, To Remain Out of Darkness. And it's the story of 2 Holocaust survivors. These are real people. So it's based on real facts. And around that, we congregated around 24 organizations that have presented programming related to the Holocaust. And we had the Figi Art Museum, we have the Putnam Museum, we have the 2 colleges, Augustana and St. Ambrose, and many other organizations that were part of this and presented in the fall different in their medium. If museum was their medium, they curated an exhibition around that. If ballet was their medium, they will choreograph something related to the Holocaust. And in every facet of our organization, from the professional orchestra performing this opera, or the youth orchestra performing an Holocaust related piece, our professional symphony performing in the masterworks. I mean, it was a very powerful thing, but I really loved the way the entire Quad City community came together to present this and to really learn what these lessons are. The Holocaust really happened, which sounds unbelievable that I even have to affirm that these days, but I do. And learn all the atrocities that happened, and do it in a way that uplifts our spirits, in a way that it will make us reflect where we come from, and to make sure that, you know, the younger generations understand what this all means. We did a preview performance of this opera for you know, a visiting cohort of you know, school age children that came to see the opera, and then we did a Q&A at the end. And this, I was just so amazed at the intellectual level of these students, asking all sorts of questions that we had to stop and think. I mean, one of the questions was, should Auschwitz be a touristy place? Should tourists be allowed to go into Auschwitz? And, you know, like, wow, I didn't think about that. I mean, we just take it for granted that if you are doing some tourism in Europe, eventually you end up in one of these places that, you know, are so incredibly that are connected with the cruelest time of humankind. In fact, I'm part of the youth orchestra tour. Is we're gonna take our students to Terezin, to another concentration camp, you know, in Europe. So, I mean, that is really the highlight of my career here in the Quad Cities. The way the Quad City community came together to present in a cohesive way Holocaust-related programming.
Yeah, I want to settle on that for a moment and just really, you know, really give, you know, a nod to you and everyone who in the community worked on that, because that's, you know, a super important project, and it is so heavy. And, you know, it's just so important to keep the information alive in whatever form, you know, creatively, what the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra did, and being in, you know, welcoming to the next generation coming in and asking questions, hard questions that, you know, you, like you said, you maybe weren't ready for, or hadn't thought that way about it. And it's just, I just think really, you know, nice job to you guys for putting in the work and, you know, giving that effort to such an important topic.
Thank you so much. I mean, we do it because we find it that it's so incredibly relevant for our community, for frankly the world. I mean, every community should be doing this, and we're playing our part, as they say, thinking globally and acting locally. That's our modus operandi. Yeah,
that's how it's done. So yeah, Brian, a highlight moment for you, and how long have you been with the symphony orchestra?
5 years, a little over 5 years now.
Okay, so yeah, a top memory or a highlight, anything?
I'm struggling to identify just one.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that Ernesto talked about To Remain Out of Darkness, because that was a really incredibly powerful and moving experience. I mean, that it was hard not to be like totally touched by that performance. I mean, really, really incredible. And that wasn't even our first sort of chamber opera like that. We commissioned one the previous year, or I guess it was a couple years before, commissioned local composer Jacob Banks, who's also a faculty member at Augustana. And he wrote this opera called Karkinos, which was an uplifting allegory about the cancer experience. It was a partnership with Living Proof Exhibit, who's a local group that does art therapy work with cancer survivors, cancer patients, and we got both hospital systems involved, and there's a lot of partnership. So it was kind of a similar model, so to speak, and it was really just another demonstration of that power of, you know, one of our core values, which is using music to start and continue conversations. So that was another moment. But and actually, I want to give. So I'm sneaking into. Okay, so that was another moment in a similar vein to what Ernesto was talking about. But I'm going to point out I think it's our 2019 Riverfront Pops concert. So right now it's 2023 May. It's May now, May of 2023. You know, we're still dealing with flooding, right? And yes. Flood is receding. It's looking pretty positive right now. In 2019, which was the record flood for our community, was awful. The barrier broke, and then the flood just stuck around forever. And this meant that LeClaire Park, where we normally hold our Pops concert, was not going to be ready in time. Not to mention that our friends at the railroad raised the tracks that year, so we didn't have proper access to the park with our vehicles. Anyway, it's a whole long story. But we, in very short order that summer, pivoted the whole event to a new location. And I won't go into all that detail other than to say we ended up doing the Pops concert on the Rock Island Arsenal, kind of one of the areas that used to be the golf course right on the rivers. It's beautiful setting. And it was just such a heavy lift for the staff and for everybody, and trying to get the whole community wrapped around the idea of this event that's always been in one place to another place. And it was just really a triumphant experience to be able to make that happen. And to me, like, sort of the lesson out of it was, like, when we work with others in the community, in this case, the Arsenal was a really big partner. You know, you can make things happen, you can overcome these types of challenges and still deliver this incredible event that's so important in our community. So that was definitely a peak moment. Once we made it happen, leading up to it was a lot of work to make it happen. And little did we know, you know, the pandemic would come the following year. So it looked pretty easy afterward, I guess.
The
So,
flexibility that you all have had to have and endure all of these obstacles is astounding.
Well, you know, I admire Brian a lot, because when he first arrived here, I mean, he had to be solving crisis after crisis. I mean, of course, there are challenges when you start a new job, but, like, I mean, the level of challenges that he had to face. I mean, he arrives here and there's a flood that is basically ruining our biggest event ever, and he knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was an amazing event. Then after that, dealing with the pandemic, and, you know, it's been one thing after the other. And, you know, like, the fact that in the outside you don't notice that is a testament to his amazing work.
Bravo, Brian. It's, you know, you probably didn't get into the industry to be a crisis manager, and here you are making it happen. How did you find your way to the Quad Cities Symphony Orchestra?
It was a long walk. No, in college, I studied music, and very early on found that I had an interest and a talent and eventually a passion for the arts administration, the sort of management side of music. So I'm a composer primarily in my artistic life. And one of the things I really loved about you know, really learning the craft in college and all the things that come along with writing your music and getting it performed was, you know, obviously you're sort of composing is a lonely task, because you're writing it, you're in your own head, you're in a private space usually. But where I really started to light up and really enjoy things was then, okay, I'm writing this piece of music. What am I trying to communicate with it? And now how am I going to get it out into the world? And so you know, what I think is an important part of music school is you're taking your music, you are convincing your peers, other musicians, to play it on stage in front of other people, get them to champion the message you're trying to send with your music. So you have that. And then you're having to convince other people to take time out of their busy schedules to come see it. So, and then you have to produce the concert, make sure there's music stands and chairs, make sure you've reserved the hall. So all these sort of basic things, which, you know, we do at scale here at the Quad Cities Symphony. I was really, really engaged in that work since the time I was in undergrad. And I mean, in high school too, but really.
And where was college for you?
I went to Illinois Wesleyan University, and then I went to my master's in Chicago College of Performing Arts. So I ended up in Chicago for 10 years before I came here. And I worked in a number of different places, primarily the Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestras. I co-founded the Chicago Composers Orchestra. And, you know, at a certain point, you're looking for your next career steps and whatnot. And so I applied to a number of places, and this job, the executive director position with the Quad Cities Symphony, came up, and I actually wasn't going to apply at first. I didn't think I was the right fit. But then I was encouraged to, and I did, and I landed it, and it's been a really wonderful, happy 5 years so far. And I grew up in the Chicago area, so I'm not local, I'm not native to the Quad Cities. However, I've always known about the Quad Cities, and now having lived here for 5 years, I really know about the Quad Cities. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a real short version of how I ended up here.
Do you have an instrument of choice, something that you grew up with, or a favorite?
Well, I'm a percussionist and a drummer. So I'd say drum set.
Drums, yeah. My husband is a drummer, and he's a gigging drummer, so I get to
Nice.
see a lot of that, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I grew up playing piano, and I was kind of thrust into the flute crowd when I was in middle school. It was something I played
Nice.
for a couple of years, and then I didn't keep up with it, but
I like that
still
you
got
call it
like,
a crowd.
yeah, it was a crowd. There were like 10 or 12 of us,
Yeah.
so it felt like a lot to me. Would you guys say that the Riverfront Pops, is like the staple event of your lineup every year?
It's our largest event every season. Yeah.
I think it's one that I know the community gets very excited about, that, as well as your live to film performances. And I was trying to think, what is it that draws certain people to, your certain events? And I think it's the, especially the live to film, it's the age range that you can reach. Like you're reaching young children, and, people who have been loving live music, for decades. So I really appreciate that about you guys, that you are able to put out, performances throughout the year, throughout each season, that can reach a whole host of different types of people. It's really special that we have that here in the Quad Cities. And you guys have been recognized by the Illinois Council of Orchestras 2 years in a row, maybe more from beyond my knowledge, but I want to kind of talk about that. So Community Relations of the Year recognition. Can you guys speak to what that meant, and what that, kind of says about the QC Symphony Orchestra?
Yeah. So what I really take away from it, and I hope others take away from it, is these awards are evaluated by a group of people who are not Quad citizens. They don't live here. They're not from the Quad Cities necessarily, or, well, I can't say they're not from here, but they don't live here. And so the fact that we have folks from outside of our community seeing what we're doing here and saying, man, these people deserve this recognition for this work they're doing, I think it's really meaningful. And in particular, a couple of the programs that were highlighted was our Concert Access Pass, and our what was the other one? There was another community program that we run, but the Concert Access Pass is this program where we partner with all these different kind of health and human service oriented nonprofits and agencies and other service organizations in the community who provide different things, whether it's basic needs or this, that, or the other thing that are super important in our community. And our sort of base premise here is like, our orchestra is for everyone. One of our essential goals is to open community access to the QCSO. So if someone is going to the food bank where they need some of their food needs met, or they're going to Health and Human Services and they get support for housing or this, that, or the other thing, they should also be able to get the experience of live music. Like our orchestra is for everybody. And so this applies to any concert. So we give out memberships through our partners, and individuals or families can take those memberships, and then they're able to secure complimentary tickets throughout the year for any concert. It's not limited to a certain series or anything. It's any of the shows. So that's, it's still a pretty new program. It's only really a little bit more than a year old. So I think there's a lot more that we're hoping to do with it, but that's been really powerful. And it's programs like that I think others outside the community are seeing and are getting really excited about.
Yeah, access to the
And
arts is a human right. So everybody has access to the arts.
well said. And Professional Orchestra of the Year. Can you speak to that one as well?
Yeah, well, you know, we're the best orchestra out there. No, it's that's a great honor. I mean, I think most people in the Quad Cities are either not aware or don't know how good our orchestra is in comparison to orchestras across the country. And there's a lot of really incredible orchestras all over this country. I mean, we have such a robust network and slew of orchestras, from very small community orchestras to very large big city orchestras, and they're all really good. But we have something really special here. Our orchestra sounds like $1 million. Our musicians love performing in the orchestra. It has a really good reputation within the professional musician community in and around the region. And the concerts, you hear it when you hear that orchestra performing on stage, whether it's like Beauty and the Beast this weekend that Ernesto will be leading, or one of our masterworks where they're doing Beethoven. It doesn't really matter what the music is. They just perform so well. And I think the programming, the fact that within each series, we're trying to be really diverse in different types of music, as well as the different types of series, like you alluded to earlier, Katrina, like with the movies, as well as the masterworks and, the chamber operas when we do those, all these different things. That's really what that's all about.
If you were to, come upon a visitor, someone's here just for the weekend or something, they're planning a weekend in the Quad Cities, what coming up event that you guys are putting on would you say you have to go to this?
Ernesto, you want to?
Oh, yes, you have to come to Beauty and the Beast this weekend. It's on May 13th at 7. No, it's 2 p.m., right?
2 p.m. Yeah, 2
p.m. Family friendly time. So you can bring the young ones in your life, your nieces, your nephews, your children and grandchildren, to come experience the orchestra live for the first time as we perform the soundtrack along the projection in full HD and even better quality than HD, which I forget what the acronym is, but in amazing quality of that incredibly beautiful film. So
I'm sold. I have to go.
And there's not very many tickets left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, good. It's fortunately and unfortunately.
There's tickets left. But you got to get them because they are bought, which is great.
That's awesome.
So, my turn now.
Your turn.
Well, I have the same one. But I would also say, coming up June 11th, you can come see our Youth Symphonies tour send-off concert. So the Youth Symphony is leaving for tour on June 17th, but the weekend prior, June 11th, they'll be performing the program that they'll be doing in Europe right here. That's at the Bartlett Performing Arts Center, I believe, which is at Moline High School. And it's a chance to see their work, the culmination of their work over the course of the year, and to really get the students, these incredible young musicians, really, really pumped up to go and take this music on tour and share it with the world. So I do hope we'll have a lot of folks from the community come out for that as well.
Love it. So now I want to throw it to each of you to fill in the blank. QC, that's where. Who would like to go first?
I can go first. QC, that's where access meets inspiration.
Beautiful.
And I'm gonna piggyback a bit off that. So QC, that's where you can hear a world-class orchestra and experience world-class music education.
Now, you guys were worried that you were going to have the same one, but it seems like you had different ideas going on.
Well, I went first on purpose because I was pretty sure Brian had the same as I did. But I'll tell you this something.
Saying the same thing.
You know, I don't know if the Quad Cities has a flag. Is there a flag of the Quad Cities?
I
But
don't think
it
so.
definitely has a sound, and you can hear it here.
That's awesome. Yes, I agree. I agree with that statement. That's very cool. And your access meets inspiration. That's kind of a nice tagline to, you know, the access pass that you guys have been kind of, you know, recognized for. I think that's great. And music is for everyone, art is for everyone. There's so much in the Quad Cities. There's so much like free or low cost ways to experience our art and culture and creativity scene. And you guys are definitely playing into that so nicely. And we appreciate that here at Visit Quad Cities as well. How can people find your lineup, get involved, you know, apply for programs?
Absolutely. You just head over to QCSO.org, and it's very easy to find all of our upcoming concerts and events. You can click on the education tab to learn about audition opportunities for the youth ensembles, to learn about signing up for private lessons. We have a really big private lesson program, as well as all the other types of education and community-based programs we've got. And yeah, it's a robust resource and the easiest way to get involved.
Thank you so much, Ernesto, Brian. This was such a pleasure to speak with both of you. I learned a ton about the orchestra. I'm very excited for what you guys have ahead. So really appreciate your time. And I encourage everybody to check out that website. I will link it below, and enjoy your week.
Thanks for listening to QC That's Where, a podcast powered by Visit Quad Cities. Text Visit QC to 38314 for insider events, activities, and updates sent straight to your phone. That's VISITQC, one word, to 38314. Message and data rates may apply.